Welcome to Trending Faith here on GCU TV. My name is Ashley Romantic, and let's get right into our question from Emily, who is a freshman here at GCU. And she asks, does everything happen for a reason? Is there such thing as fate or destiny? And I'm going to direct this question towards you, Tim.
Well, I don't know if I put them in those terms. I think that God has a way of allowing things to happen in life that I don't think we're always prepared for. And so I think a lot of people ask, why am I experiencing these difficulties, these challenges? And I think people then begin to question, is this what God has destined for my life, that I would have these difficulties, when if He's a real loving God, then He'd make my life, much easier. Mm-hmm. So I think quite often that question gets asked in that kind of a context. What I do think is that God does allow things to happen in our life that sometimes are difficult to experience, and a lot of that helps shape our faith and confidence in Him. I think that if there is a destiny, I think it is for us to know God, that He would He desires that we would come to know Him, that we'd experience His love. I think He hopes and longs for that. Now, whether everybody's going to respond to their circumstances in the same way when things are difficult or when things are easy, I think God knows. And as a result, He'll allow things to happen in our lives that will draw our attention towards Him. So whether that's good or whether that's things that are difficult. So I think, even though it's a question I think a lot of people ask, I think that the reality is that God is a sovereign God. He knows what we need. He knows what He is wanting to accomplish in the universe, what His purposes are. And so sometimes He allows or makes decisions to allow things to happen or for us to experience that are very difficult sometimes. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in my office or been in a conversation where somebody's sharing how difficult this particular set of circumstances is for them. And I ask myself, God, why would you allow them to experience such a thing? Mm-hmm. But I can't help but answer that question with, God is God. He's in charge. He knows the beginning from the end. And He knows what He's doing, even though I might not. And so that's a challenge for me to trust Him, even in the midst of a difficult circumstance, to say, God knows what He's up to. And I believe that. And even if it's a difficult thing, He has a way of weaving that circumstance, that experience in a person's life into His desire to make things good and wonderful in our experience of life. But not everybody will respond in that way to their circumstances, and sometimes it makes it more difficult for we human beings sometimes to see God's greater plan and the difficult moments. So,
I definitely think the difficult times also help you grow as a person. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think Tim used some really important words there, talking about God allowing. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when something bad happens, we feel like, okay, God did that to me. Mm-hmm. And I think biblically we can talk about a sense in which God is in control of everything. There's a sovereignty, and the opposite of that is actually more troubling, that something is outside of His control, which means things do happen for absolutely no reason, and God couldn't really stop it. Well, that's not what we see biblically. But when God allows difficulty to come our way, we experience that. It's actually consoling that there is, at least in the big picture, some purpose behind that. Mm-hmm. So when we raise the question, does every single thing happen for a reason? We might not be able to identify that reason. We might even scratch our heads as to whether or not you could ever attach reason. There, things that happened during the Holocaust, for instance. How in the world do we say that led to something good in the grand scheme of things? I could never explain that. But I think it's critical to understand God is masterfully shaping human beings. He's leading them back toward Himself. In the case of Christians, recreating them in His own image through the sufferings of the present age. It makes no sense from our perspective at many points, but it is actually part of a very big and very wise plan. The other piece to that question, which I think is interesting, are we looking at something like fate or destiny? Is there something, where things are just kind of lining up and moving in a direction, and it doesn't matter? That's usually what fate means. It doesn't matter what I do or don't do, or what I choose or don't choose. I don't think that there's any way that we can disconnect human agency. We are involved in the choices that we're making. We're significantly contributing to that. And sometimes in a very secular world, we feel like there's kind of a machine that's grinding us, and nature and nurture equals whatever we choose. It's just not true. We're very responsible, and it does matter what God is making us to be and the choices we're making, which also shape us.
Okay, Emily, well, I hope that answers your question. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to email them to us at trendingfaith@gcu.edu or use the hashtag trendingfaith.